one at age 30, one at 45. Yeah, now I'm like...
And Katie's going to give us...
Yes.
Okay.
All right. We got a bunch of great candidates here. My name's Dennis Bragg. It's pleased to be asked to come out and moderate this event tonight. It's a lot of fun. To answer the questions, people always say, I miss your stories on KPAX. What happened to you? I'm semi-retired now, but I'm still doing mornings on KISS FM and working on a lot of my YouTube projects. You can find me, just search Dennis Bragg. I'm all over the doggone internet, it seems like, and working on my Bragg About Montana channel, which is a lot of those stories that you miss from time to time, and that'll be on YouTube. So pleased to have you all here tonight. It's a great turnout. Love to see the enthusiasm, and we want to thank all of our organizers for putting this together. So the purpose really of the forum, I'll read a couple of ground rules here, is to get to know our candidates for House District 90, Senate District 45, and our county commissioner candidates better. We're really here tonight to learn what their interests are in representing you, the citizens of Monroe County, and also to give voters the opportunity to ask questions about the issues, which will be the second half of our forum tonight. So a couple of ground rules. This applies to not only candidates, but everybody else. We want to have a welcoming behavior here tonight. Politics being what it is, we want to make sure that we kind of stay on task and on track here as best as we can. We want to have an active discussion tonight of the issues and things that affect us here in Monroe County. We have questions and of course civil dialogue as well. And when we get to, and this is more for the candidates than anything else, make your statements, and we'll talk about timekeeping in a second, but really try to answer your questions as much as possible. That's what this is about. You know, campaign statements and those things are fine and everything, but we really, we want to know what you're going to do under the hood, and really try to, and same thing with your questions. When you ask those questions, try to be as specific as you can and give these folks a chance to answer. Unwelcome behavior will include personal attacks, lion attacks if those happen, no wildlife in here, no bears tonight, accusations, insults, or any other kind of objectionable language you'd be asked to leave. Here's the agenda for tonight. So we're going to have our candidates introduce themselves, give us a little background on themselves, kind of working around two opening questions. It really is, why you're running for the position, and just generally what kind of motivated you to get into the race this time around. We'll get into more specifics about the issues, but if you just want to say, hey, I'm concerned about roads, or I'm concerned about budgets, just kind of refer to that in a general way, and then we'll get into more details as we get to those questions and answers. So we'll do that for the first few minutes here and get a chance to meet all of our candidates, and then we'll have the most important part of the night, coffee and snacks. We'll take a little break, and then we'll start getting through our questions and answers, which we'll have you write down on cards and send them up front, and then we'll sort and go through those. We want to thank especially our organizers. Give them a big round of applause. Liz and everybody else who put this together. Takes a lot of work. Want to thank, of course, our Superior Schools for welcoming us in tonight, and specifically our volunteers from the Superior Business Professionals of America, those student volunteers, and we want to thank them for their help as well. Mary is going to be recording this tonight for future use and distribution, so if you have to stand up or walk by, she's back there with a camera, and I kind of know what that's like when somebody gets in your way. So if you can, just walk through. You don't have to duck necessarily, but give her a little bit of room. Okay, I want to introduce our candidates for tonight that we have, and we have a few more, so I'm going to cut over to this list as that was a little dated. So if you want to raise your hand as I go down the list in no particular order, our Senate District 45 candidates, we have Devin Jackson. Devin's the Democrat in the race, as I recall, right, Devin? Okay, got to get those labels right. Kelley Durbin, who's running as an independent. Kelly's here on the end. Denley, of course, we all know from different things. Loge. Denley, good to have you tonight. He's Loge. Did I say it wrong? Sorry, Denley. He and I know each other first name basis better than last name basis. Then we have AnnaMarie White, who's running for Senate District 45. She's right there. Then our county commissioner candidates, Shawn Smalley, right there, and our incumbent, Don Terrill. Don's down the end there. Then we have Jeff Stanek. Jeff's down there, and of course he's running for House District 90. Steve DeLisle. Steve's right there. DeLisle. See? Got him wrong pronunciation already. That's pretty good. And then Curt Cochran, who's running also for that House District 90 seat. Okay, Kelley, you want to come up and explain our timekeeping process here so we can kind of get used to that? Go ahead.
Good evening. I'm Katie Vaughn. I'm the Director of Civic Engagement at the Mansfield Center at the University of Montana, and we are one of the sponsors for tonight's event. This is exactly the kind of programming that we like to sponsor at the Mansfield Center because we are always upholding Mike Mansfield's legacy of fostering civil dialogue and encouraging bipartisanship and bridging divides. We have a lot of programming that we do through the Mansfield Center to do just that, and I've brought some material. We focus our programming primarily at high school, university students, and the communities. We recently even hosted some Superior High School students on campus for a day to engage with us. And I was talking to Lane earlier tonight. If you know other high school students, we currently have applications open for an all-expenses-paid trip to Taiwan this summer for a couple of weeks. So some students from Montana can go and get exposed to the Mandarin language. I was really happy when Liz called me up and asked if I could be here tonight because this community really means a lot to me. In the mid-70s, my aunt and uncle moved here. My uncle was one of the two town doctors in Superior, and they were only here for a couple years. He was with the Rural Health Service, and he got moved someplace else, but this community meant so much to him that when he died a few years after leaving here, he was buried in the Superior Cemetery, and my aunt moved back and raised my cousins here. So it's really always kind of a homecoming to come to Superior. So my role tonight is going to be as timekeeper. Each candidate has 2 minutes to answer the questions. When you get to the point where you have 30 seconds left, I will wave a yellow card to give you the warning, and then I'll wave probably this red folder when you hit the 2-minute mark, and I will be sitting in the front row right there. So I'll try and get your attention if it looks like you're going to go over. That's
okay, good. It's kind of like soccer, red and yellow. That's what we do, right? All right, let's go ahead then and get underway with our opening candidates. I'm going to go try to generally go down the table here, I think, really. Let me get my right thing. But I think we'll start out with, let's start with our county commissioner candidates initially. Don, do you want to come up and give us that first 2-minute statement to sort of talk about why you're running and, again, just generally what your interest is in being in the race? Here's Don Terrill. Don?
Yes, thank you. I think you could probably hear me better if I was just standing out in front there because it was hard to hear down at the corner. But I'm really loud, so maybe this will work. So I want to let you know that I am Dawn Terrill. I am the acting Central District Commissioner. I am a retired educator. I came on with the county in October of 2015. I got riffed in July of 2016, so I can tell you that has made me acutely aware of the necessity for financial, can't even say the word now, of being financially responsible and also paying attention to what your budget is. May of 2017. I started as a commissioner's assistant in 2017. Then 2018, commissioner assistant, HR and safety coordinator. Then in 2022, I became the commissioner. I was appointed to fill an expiring 2-year seat. And so I have sat with the commissioners for 7 years. I will have been in 7 years of budget meetings when July comes around this year. I want you to know a little bit about what the commissioners do. We do sit on a diverse array of boards. We appoint for boards. We are having office hours. The commissioners have taken over the duties of commissioner assistant, safety coordinator, and HR administrator. As an HR administrator, it's really just paper pushing and setting appointments. So what I would like to continue working with my 2 co-commissioners is we want to take a look at garbage. We kind of dropped the ball on that, but I want to thank Curt Cochran and Tammy Demian for keeping going with that, and we want to get back in the game with garbage. Also, we are in the process of writing a policy handbook. We're working on improving the fairgrounds. Was that 3 seconds?
30.
Oh, 30, okay. I couldn't hear it. We want to pursue getting a full-time grant writer. We don't know what that would look like as far as would they be an employee or would they work on commission. We need to advocate more for PILT money for Mineral County. Missoula gets a lot more than we do, and yet we have all the forest land. So we're going to advocate for that, and we're going to advocate for the centrally assessed districts to be disbanded. Oh, and that was it.
Yeah, we'll explain more. You'll like
Okay.
that. One thing, as our candidates are making these statements, you'll be thinking of questions that may tie into something that they may mention in their introduction here. So, all right, up next we got Shawn Smalley. Shawn, come on up and tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing to run for Mineral County Commissioner. Watch the cords.
Yep, sneak in there. Hello, my name is Shawn Smalley. I'm born and raised in western Montana, in Missoula. And I moved out to Superior with my family, wife and one daughter, in 2006 with the Highway Patrol. And I just like it out here. It was a good move for us, but the patrol has been my life. I got on when I was 23 years old. And now I'm 43, so I'm nearing that spot where I've done my 20 years. I'm able to retire and move on to something else. But back to my family, when we moved out here, I had my second daughter was born a year after, or a month after we moved here, and then our family expanded, and so right now I'm sitting with 8 kiddos, and it takes up a lot of time. But 5 of those kiddos are adopted. Kids are on my heart. I love them. And we also have done a lot of other things with kids. To the patrol, though, 20 years of working on the road, working with a multitude of different agencies. I've been through, as a supervisor, I've been a supervisor for almost 11 years with the patrol, and we are in charge of monetary and budget things with that. But I've also been to Libby, to Butte, and to Missoula as a supervisor, and then when Roman retired as the supervisor out here, I filled in and took over for him. And so one of my biggest things is to continue to, man, that was quick, is continue to build relationships. So here's what I want. As a county commissioner, I want to work on finances and investments. I want to work on roads. I want to work on getting the sheriff's department funded properly so that we can keep our guys here. They're a building block to our community, and we need it. So those are just some of the basics, but I also want professionalism. That's one of the things I've worked on for an entire career, and I think I can bring that. I can bring a lot of leadership to the table for this group. So appreciate it.
All right, thank you. You know, I ran for county commissioner one time years and years ago. I think I was 26 years old at the time, and it's a challenge to run for these. So thank you, all of you, for your various community service in advance. We really do appreciate that. Okay, let's switch over to House District 90. We'll start with Jeff Stanek, who's running as a Republican in this race. Jeff, come on up and tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running. 2 minutes is on the clock when you start.
So for a lot of years, I was nothing more than a concerned citizen and a voter. I wasn't afraid of speaking out about bad policy or corruption that I saw in government, but I wanted to be left alone. Things started to change, though, when I recognized what was going on in local government, our state government, and obviously, if you're not paying attention, the federal government's off the rails. But nonetheless, I started feeling a pull to get involved. And it wasn't until I was blessed with 2 sons that I had an inescapable feeling of call of duty to get involved. So this is why I'm running. I don't want to look back in 10, 20, or 30 years and think I could have tried to change something to better our state for my posterity and for your posterity. The people in Western Montana and Montana as a whole need to gather around this idea. It's in our preamble to our Constitution. It's about our posterity, not just us. I didn't have a choice about being born on the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, but I had a choice about coming and moving to Montana in 2016. Graduated from Western, got my master's, and started teaching at St. Regis. I love it. It's the best job I've ever had. But with that, I also recognize that Montana is one of the last states in the Union that I think still upholds values that are important to me and probably important to you. Things like protection of the Bill of Rights, the Constitution. I don't like the idea of taxes, okay? I don't like the idea that the property that I purchased is not really mine, that I have to pay rent and property taxes every year. I understand that we need that to fund things like schools. I'm a school teacher, law enforcement, roads, all kinds of stuff like that. But if the budget in years past worked, why are we raising taxes this year? This is a really important question that we need to ask. You see, it's a symptom of bigger government, and it's ever expanding. And so these are some of the issues that I really am concerned with. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jeff. Now we're into our House District 90 candidates. Also running for this is Steve DeLisle. Steve, come on up. Tell us a little bit about why you're running, and we'll get things started for you here.
Hello, everyone. My name is. Yeah, I got this. My name is Dr. Steve DeLisle. I'm the local dentist here in Superior. The reason why I'm running, it really starts with a story. In 2016, me and my wife moved to Alberton, and we built a house. And a little bit later, we bought some land, put some cattle and bison, and planted a vineyard on the land. And at the time, I was still working in Nevada. I was traveling back and forth. And then COVID hit, and the state of Nevada shut down my business, told me to stay inside my house, forced me to wear a mask, and tried to get me to take vaccines that I did not want. And at that time, I said, okay, I'm done with it. We're going to move up to Montana full time. So we moved up here. I started from scratch, started an office in Lolo, started an office in Frenchtown in Superior. And the reason why I'm running is because I don't want Montana to become like the states I fled from. Montana provided refuge for me and my wife when the government went crazy during COVID. And like Jeff said, Montana is one of the last places that will respect our fundamental rights. What are our fundamental rights? Supreme Court says our fundamental rights, among many, are the freedom of speech, free exercise of religion, right to keep and bear arms, private property rights, and parental rights. If I get elected, I'm going to be voting to advance those rights. These are states' issues. These aren't local issues. These affect everybody. And so these are what are near and dear to my heart. And I'll say one more thing about being here. There's definitely talk about being born here, being from here, as if that is going to tell you the way someone is going to vote. I'm here because I want to be here, and I want to represent Montanans, and I want to protect you from the crap that I fled. In Nevada, they give illegal immigrants driver's licenses. You get a driver's license, you automatically sign up to get registered to vote. Guess what happened during COVID? All those illegal immigrants that were on the voter rolls got ballots. I saw it. It came to my house. I don't want that to happen in Montana. Thank you.
Our third candidate in this Republican runoff for June 4th is the primary, is Curt Cochran. Curtis, come on up.
Hi, I'm Curt. Having a good day today. I got my turkey today. It's about my fifth one of these deals, and maybe I'm getting better at it. I got like 3 speeches: the one I wrote, the one I said, and then the one I wish I said. So I got involved 2 years ago with the Republican Party on behalf of Denley. The Republican right faction that kind of took over, and it was totally disbanded and disallowed by the state GOP. So a bunch of us got elected precinct people, and we took back over. We got order back in civility and undivided that committee. And then I got elected to be the state committee man. So I got to go to Billings and Missoula and learn. And along that trail, I met a bunch of legislators and ran into a bunch of guys that I know. I mean, I've been in Montana for 68 years. I've been voting in Montana for 50 years. And a bunch of people asked me, well, why don't you run? Denley's termed out. And so last June, I filed with the COPP, and I've been working on it ever since. Less politics, more leadership. That's my goal. I'm a common sense conservative, which is another word for moderate. The divisiveness in this country right now, it's time for it's time to undivide it. Unity, work together. There's 10,800 people in this district, 5 high schools, 6 elementary schools, Frenchtown, Alberton, Superior, St. Regis, and Plains and Paradise. It's a big district. My issues are school funding and rural health care that I know the legislature can help with. And that's my deal. Thank you. I'm Curtis J. Cochran, and my name's on the ballot.
Thanks, Curt. All right, thank you, Curt. Appreciate that. I love hearing these stories because it really illustrates the motivation for these folks and why they're going through this process. All right, let's switch over to our candidates now for Senate District 45. I think we'll just go down the list as I've got it here. So we'll start with Devin Jackson. Devin, come on up.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Devin Jackson, and I'm running to be your senator. I grew up in the Bitterroot. I spent 15 years in Lolo Community Council, and what we found immediately while working on Lolo Community Council was that if we wanted something done, if we wanted a road fixed, if we wanted anything, if we wanted trails, we had to go to the state level because the county commissioners were obsessed with other things. And so what I wanted to do when I first ran 2 years ago was to represent Lolo, to represent my community, and to put community before politics. Well, they redistricted a little bit, and now we've got 2 incumbents running in Lolo. So there's a Senate district that didn't have a Democrat in it, and not only did it have communities like Lolo, it had a lot of communities like Lolo, little communities that are forgotten up and down this way. And the only way we're going to get representation is if somebody comes out here and talks to you and finds out what's going to happen and what we're going to fix. The first thing we need to do is bring down the tone. We need to stop fighting. I'm not going to fight. There's a lot of things I want to defend, but I'm going to HELENA to work, not fight. And I think we spent a lot of time in the last session wasting a lot of time just fighting. And the only way that we can move forward is if we recognize that no matter if we're a different party, we're neighbors, we're Montanans. I grew up here like the rest of you. So my first priority, of course, is housing. We need more housing, but for a lot of us, myself included, who have a few acres, we need to solve this property tax problem. We all just got another bill. There was a $2.7 billion surplus and they raised our taxes? So I'm running against the supermajority that raised our taxes. I'm Devin Jackson. I'm pretty easy to find online. Look me up. Thanks.
Thanks, Devin. There we go. All right, let's go to Williams, running as an independent in this race. Deep breath.
I was just waiting.
Okay, there you go.
Hi, guys. I'm going to stand out here, and I'm going to try not to blast you out. This is real, authentic energy, so some of you might already be put off. It's natural, so forgive me. It is my absolute honor and privilege to be standing up here and running for Senate District 45 with the 3 humans that I am running with. I like them. You are very fortunate. We are very fortunate in our district. I've learned a lot about them, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about me. Born and raised in Kansas. Doesn't get much more middle than that. I was raised in a suburb of Kansas City. I went to school in Hays, Kansas. I was a gymnast. I have a degree in exercise science. Couldn't pass algebra to get my teaching degree. Didn't stop me. I've been teaching since I was 14. I own Mismo Gymnastics in Missoula, Montana. I have been coaching for 40 years. I love little people. Grown-ups sometimes make me a little nervous, but I love you too. My husband told me not to use the word love too many times. I've already failed at that, babe. I am running. You asked the question was why and what's my motivation. My mama told me if I don't like the way things are going to get in the game. So I'm in the game. And I'm running as an independent. Your favorite questions so far, because I've knocked about 400 doors, are, so really are you, a Democrat or a Republican? And the answer to you is, no, I'm very much an independent. There are definitely issues, me personally, and already some of you asked me some of the hard ones, and I answered them honestly. I am very moderate, but my job is not to go represent myself. My job is to represent you. And I am knocking your doors, and I'm learning a lot. And on my website, which goes live, well, it went live today, thank you, God. There's going to be a spot where if you have questions, you can ask. If you want information, the links will be there. and I want you to have easy access to your government because we need an engaged citizenry. And by the way, Superior, you win. You have the most signs, so when mine comes out, if anybody wants an independent, hit me up.
All right, thanks, Kelley.
Yeah.
Uniquely qualified for a political thing because of your experience with gymnastics. That's not a qualification I often hear with candidates. That's great. I love it. All right, finally, let's get Denley up here. Denley, of course, Denley Loge, Denley termed out, and now he's running for Senate District 45 to keep representing you. Denley, go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you for everybody coming. Denley Loge, State Regis. I had a career, 17 years of road construction, and then I started buying the family ranch that I'd been working on. So I ended up going to work for the highway department. So I had 28 years plowing snow up on Lookout Pass. When I retired, there was an opening. The incumbent representative decided he was going to move to England, and so I decided to run, and I got elected, and I've gone 4 terms. So I'm termed out. During that time, I was chairman of the Transportation Committee in the legislature for 3 terms. But I decided I needed to finish my work, and that running for the Senate was finishing my work. I've accomplished a lot, I feel, while I've been in Helena. One of the things I did this last session was get electric cars paying for their road use fees. And that was a big push because a lot of people wanted them to keep their free ride. But I have a list over there. There's 16 bills that I passed this last session, and they varied from land access. I think that's real important. And I know we have to work on the tax issue. There's no question about the tax issue. We can say legislators dropped the ball. The county commissioners are saying we dropped the ball. We say they dropped the ball. But everybody dropped the ball a little bit, and we are going to be fixing it. There's a tax task force that's working on that right now. And I think they'll be coming up with some great ideas. We have housing issues, and I know we did pass a bill, House Bill 819, that adds a little bit that the communities can go in and get a kind of a reloaded loan if they want to set up a project. We have, well, the fact that I've been in Helena before and I work with people, passing 16 bills, you have to work with people. And I also work with the constituents. When I go to the grocery store, it might be 2 hours before I get out. And I think that's the thing. I'm approachable, and I will do the job for you. Denley Loge, House District, or Senate District, I have to say, 45.
Let's talk from AnnaMarie White. AnnaMarie, come here.
So I'm AnnaMarie White. I am. I see lots of smiling faces tonight, so I'm just really happy to be here. Thank you guys for being here. Anyway, I am AnnaMarie White, and I'm running for the Senate District 45. Somebody needs to let Dennis know that. So I want to tell you a little bit about myself. We'll have an opportunity to talk about platform and all of the other stuff here in just a few minutes. So I moved to Montana 19 years ago this summer. We were in the Bitterroot for 12 years, and we will celebrate 7 years here in Mineral County July 4th. Right, Ron? So what brought us to Mineral County is that I own a logging and forestry and wildland fire suppression company. So I was sure that I would have work for those folks that work for me until I didn't want to work anymore. And that just hasn't happened. But I'm here, and we are gearing up for our fire season. We expect to be very busy. It is expected to be a very active fire season. My daytime job, most of you know, but for those of you that don't, I am an expert on the Indian child welfare. So I see some of my people I collaborate with. There's Mary's waving. So I know most of you. I probably work with a lot of you. What caused me to run is that I truly feel that we do not have 4 more years to give under the circumstances and conditions that we have been living. I think is now the time to pull the trigger, make some changes. My agitation and frustration can only be, attended to if I am sent to Helena as a lawmaker, because that's truly what we are lawmakers. I can't do that from here. I need to be in Helena to be able to do that. So AnnaMarie White, Dennis, Senate District 45. Thank you.
So thank you very much to our candidates. We appreciate all of them. Now we're going to take a little, let's do a 10-minute break. We'll get together about 1:45 or so here. Take a couple of minutes. We've got snacks here in the back. So get a chance, get a little refreshment, get set for round 2. Again, we want to thank Superior Schools for having us here tonight, and for all the organizers and our student volunteers, and especially our candidates coming in tonight and being able to answer questions. All right, so again, we got our timekeeper up front, still our 2-minute for the responses on these questions. What I'm going to try to do is we'll group these questions as much as we can per race, and then we'll have all of you come up from that particular race, and we could just rotate through questions quickly. So I'll try to group those as much as I can as they come in. Where's our runners for picking up questions? So if you've got a question, just raise that card as we go along here, and we'll get started with that process, and she'll be able to pick those up and then transfer them up to me, and we'll try to get as much as we can. There's no limit on the number of questions. It's just more a matter of time. And for my purposes, I prefer to have a single question, or maybe a question and a related follow-up would be helpful. But if you don't feel you want to write that much, you want to write them down, I'll shuffle the deck and we'll go through as many as we can as we get going. So, all right, any particular questions off the top do we have in our cards? We should have been, okay, here we go. And again, we'll try to group these according to race as best we can on the run. There you go. All right, thanks, Lena. She's going to get her workouts here. Okay. Okay, this is a good question. This is for all of our candidates, so I think we'll just start out with this. But again, wave if you got a card, and we'll continue. Well, let's go ahead and start with our county commissioner candidates. So this will be directed to both Shawn and Dawn to talk a little bit. Have you ever run for any offices outside of Montana? If so, where and when? So, Shawn, and yeah, come on. You'll have to come up here so we can hear you and get you up on the videotape. I'm sorry.
So, real briefly, I have not run for office ever before. This is the first time in my life that I've had the opportunity to have the time to be able to do this. With full-time highway patrol, my family, and my life there, I just didn't have the opportunity to get out and do those kind of things. I have sat on a board before, I have chaired a board before, but it wasn't like a political type thing.
Come right up. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so you're a little closer there. So we'll roll through.
Closer.
Go ahead.
I have not ever run for an office outside of Montana. My first run was asking to be appointed as commissioner in 2022. I do sit on boards. I've been elected to boards. I've been appointed, but that's the extent of running for any kind of office.
Okay, good. Let's get our House District candidates to come up. Jeff and Steve and Curt, come on up. And again, same question for the three of you. Have you ever run for office as outside of Montana? Go ahead.
Yeah, I can't help but notice this question's probably directed at me. Does anybody not know that I'm not from here? I ran for the state assembly in Nevada when I lived in Las Vegas. I wanted to make a change in Las Vegas, and quite frankly, I was too conservative for Las Vegas. And so I'm here now to make that change, and again, make sure Montana doesn't become like the place that I left. And so, yeah, I ran for state assembly in Las Vegas for the state of Nevada. That's it. Thanks.
Good. Okay. Either way, come on up. I think when I have my candidates come up, we'll just have you come over in line, and then we can just go in. That's easier. I don't want to trip anybody up there. Go ahead.
No.
There you go. Good.
Some of you guys may know I teach government. That's about as far as my political involvement goes. We don't need any more politicians, be it here or in Washington, D.C. We need statesmen. Thank you.
Okay, good.
This is my first time following through on running for office. I attempted to file to run for office 15 years ago when I lived in Missoula. I've been in Montana 25 years. I've been in Houston 5. And I backed out because at that time I filed to run as a Democrat, and the woman said, "Are you going to vote party line?" And I said, "No. I have to vote where the people want, and I have to vote with what's right." And after that, she said, "Well, we can't back you. And I said, then I can't run. And now I'm running as an independent.
I'd be like Curtis and say no, but I have, in the state, I was 10 years as a snowplow drivers, chairman of snowplow drivers in Montana, and 4 terms in office in the House. And then I had 8 years on Missoula Mineral County Farm Service Agency, and that was a voted position.
My only service as a politician has been as the Lolo Community Council member, which is community and all community and not party. We're volunteers. So it was really, I did run for House District last time, for a giant House District that included part of Alberton and Graves Creek and those sorts of things. And I think it's really good that, you know, we're in a situation where you actually have 4 choices this time around, as opposed to, you know, this really closed off system. So.
Can you repeat the question? I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Just kidding. No, I have not. Thank you.
One thing too, if you think of a question, just, you know, get a card. If you need a card, okay, just flag, and Lane's going to run around and do all that running. She's getting the exercise tonight. All right. I want to ask a question for our county commissioner candidates, because this has been, first off, let me clarify something. Somebody asked me during the break, again, to clarify party affiliation and who you're running with. So in our Senate district race, we have, and raise your hand here so everybody knows, Devin's running as a Democrat. So right there. We've got Kelley running as the independent. Okay. And then Denley and AnnaMarie are running as the Republicans. So they'll run off again in the June 4th. And then that's that situation. House district, we have the 3 Republicans, Jeff, raise your hand, Steve, and Curt, all running as Republicans in that race for House District 90. And then our 2 county commissioners, Shawn and Dawn, are running as Republicans in that. It's okay. How do you feel you can best represent your position as opposed to your running mates? So let's come on up again, and we'll go through this. Let's go ahead. Let's let AnnaMarie go first on this question.
Great.
Yeah. So again.
Okay, say it again.
I'll just leave this here.
Okay.
So
Okay. How do you feel you can best represent your position as opposed to your running mates? So I suppose it would depend on what that position is, right? It would depend on what principle I was trying to uphold, what law I was trying to ensure was being followed as it's written, or if there was a law that I was wanting to introduce. I suppose all of that would come into play, but certainly preparation, presentation, objective, goal, all of that would be spelled out clearly. And I mentioned this the other night, and a couple of people asked me about it. So I have no intention on compromising. I do intend to negotiate and accommodate, so that's how I would do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's not always going to be easy to represent everything to the best of our abilities, especially if you're running as a Democrat in a state that's likely going to have a Republican majority. However, last time there were 14 bills that violated our state constitution and violated our individual rights, that the legislature was informed beforehand that these were likely going to go to court and get thrown out. And sure enough, they did, and we wasted millions of dollars doing that. I think we need somebody who's going to actually recognize when things are important. And we spent a lot of time in the last session, over 1,000 bills, passing things that just weren't important. We had $2.7 billion in surplus, yet every issue I brought up is still an issue. You know, we still have housing problems. Our seniors are still being taxed out of their homes. So just being somebody who's willing to go there and say, hey, wait a second, how about we deal with taxes before we start talking about this other stuff, is going to be what we need to represent these small communities who are being bullied around by these larger cities around the state. So, thank you.
I feel the fact that I've been in HELENA the last 4 terms, I've learned to work with everybody, and I've gotten trust from people, and I know what to expect from quite a few of the people that will be coming back to the next session. And I think the idea is working together, and there are some people that will not work together, but if you look at the list of the bills that I carried, those were common sense type bills. We have people that come in both sides that go to extremes on some of the bills, and the Supreme Court does step in, and I think the whole idea is to go there and try to be common sense, do the work that the people back home want you to do, rather than get into fights and just prove the point that you're tougher than the other side. And the other thing is, I represent the people because I do run into you in the grocery store, I run into you in the coffee shop, and so I can express that in Helena to the people there and say, this is what the people of Mineral County, this is what the people of Western Montana want and need. And I've done that, and it's proven success without getting excited and yelling at everybody. And that's why I feel I really do accomplish that, and I have, and I want to go back and continue doing that work for our Western Montana.
I feel like the question is, what differentiates me from the other candidates and why me and not them? Yeah? Is that the question? Or am I off base? Okay. I have a ton of energy. It's going to take a lot of work. I believe in my heart that in the next 5 to 10 years we're going to face some of the most interesting challenges we've seen in my lifetime and maybe my grandparents' lifetime. I think we need to be paying attention to all kinds of things like AI, which I think is coming hard and fast whether we like it or not. And I think that we need to be informed as people and citizens and paying attention. I know that's out of left field, but I'm telling you, we need to be paying attention. So if not me, you. I intend to continue to run until I win, even if it takes me 50 years, and I hope I'm around. My grandparents are 92, so I got good genes. I'm a very hard worker. I built my business from the ground up. 42 employees, 1,200 kids enrolled. I've been in business 23 years. I made it through a recession and a pandemic, and I can work hard for you. And that's what I want to do. I just want to work for you, and I mean that. And I am absolutely going to screw it up like I did in my introduction. And I am also going to get it right, but I promise you I will be listening. I will be listening, and I'll do the best that I can. That's all I got.
Thank you. Okay, let's have Shawn and Dawn come up, our county commissioner candidates. A question there. What may be problematic about combining HR and the county commissioner position?
Well, there could be a lot of problems with that, but I'd like to clarify the way it is. HR admin is the only thing this commissioner is doing, and that is a paper-pushing position. I schedule appointments for the department heads. I put the ad in the paper based on what the department head has requested. I take applications, date stamp them, call the department head. I set up the interviews, and that's it. I have nothing to do beyond paper pushing. You could actually call that commissioner assistant. We could build that right in to the commissioner assistant position that we are doing. And again, we're saving $60,000 a year by taking these positions on ourselves. If you have an issue as an employee, and only employees can have issues against the county, you go to the county attorney. And you'll find if you look around at different counties when you're in rural Montana, sometimes commissioners have to actually be the whole HR job. So that's not what we're doing here. I'm only the paper pusher for HR administrative work.
So I am not a proponent of combining the two positions. I think that what I would like to see and what I've seen through state HR is that they need to be involved with employees in all kinds of issues. So if an employee doesn't feel comfortable, that the county attorney is very busy. They have all kinds of criminal prosecutions they're doing, felony, misdemeanor, they're dealing with civil stuff. We need to have somebody that can deal with the county employees to make sure that our morale and we're following laws. Like, we want that HR position to be able to guide how our personnel is going. So I think that while it's saving monetary value at the front, when you start talking about lawsuits, you will lose money fast. And you know, $60,000 is a lot of money. But I can tell you, and I've seen, I know from the state side that if we terminate, and that happens, if we terminate for the wrong reason, and that's an HR deal, then we can really be out a lot of money. Like $60,000 pales in comparison. I think right now we have some issues that are going to be cropping up and coming up, and I think it's going to cost the county a ton of money. And so I think it needs to be separated, and then that would allow the employees to be able to come and present their issues and stuff like that to somebody that's neutral, that's not your boss. So thank you.
Okay. Another question for commissioner candidates while they're here. You have that one. What grants are being applied for and how do they benefit the county? Shawn, just to rotate, I'm going to go with you first. Okay. Again, what grants are being applied for and how do they benefit the county?
So I'm not up on all of the grants that are currently being applied for. I know the sheriff's office is involved in a multi-county grant for it's several $1 million. But what I do think is this in terms of grants. One, I know that personally, I have personal information that there is a county commissioner in Lake County that is applying for like a $1.2 million grant for a community center. And so that's something that can happen. And to kind of go off of this is that I absolutely support getting a grant writer. That can be funded not through the county, but through the grants. It's doable. I have firsthand information from and have talked to somebody that is doing that currently for the county. And so it doesn't cost the county more, but their job, and I think we need somebody that's full-time. I think it's something we need to absolutely fight for because that money's out there and we want to better our community. And so I think it's absolutely possible to do that without costing the county more money.
I want to thank you, Shawn, for jumping on my platform because I've been advocating for that full-time grant writer. And I just want to say again, there's a multitude of ways to pay for that. And so that's something that has to be researched. As far as the grants that we have going on right now, we've got some really good ones coming out from the DES coordinator so that she can so that we can change the way our 911 system is. She's a great grant writer. She's been doing it for the health department. The health department is almost completely funded through the grants that they write. We do have, I believe we're still doing the COPS grant for the sheriff's office. The sheriff's office is very active in grant writing. Specific grants going on other than that, I couldn't tell you right now. But with our desire to have that full-time grant writer, you'll see a lot of different grants that we can then report to you about.
Great. Thank you. This is kind of an interesting question. I'm just going wild card on this because it could be for anybody. But since you guys had a bit of rest, let's put you to work here. The question is, what would you do about climate change? What could you do in Helena about climate change? Go ahead.
Climate change, really? It's getting warmer. You can't deny it. It's been getting warmer for 10,000 years. But I don't know. Denley, we've got a tax on the electric cars now. That's a good thing. We're moving that money. The electric cars are running up and down the highway for free. That's one of their answers to this issue. But I don't know what the legislature. I've been studying tax issues and K-12 funding, insurance. I don't know how that's a state issue, but I don't have a good answer at all.
So when it comes to climate change, certainly we know it's getting warmer, but there's a debate about what the cause is. I don't think there's any better steward and protector of the land than those of us who ranch, farm, fish, and plant grapes and apples and things like that. So what I am is I'm pro-growth. I want all of you to do well, make more money, pay less taxes, and I don't think any one bill or any one legislator is going to save the planet. What I am concerned about is that you guys are going to be priced out of your homes. And I'm going to take the opportunity, because not a lot of people talk about policy. I'm going to tell you right off straight top of my head what the policy is when it comes to taxes. Property taxes are too high. And as a business owner, I have to problem solve every single day. I have to make payroll every 2 weeks. I have to pay my employees before I pay myself. And as a problem solver, I look at this issue of property tax and I figure out what's going on. I would, as a legislator, introduce a bill to decrease property taxes, because the state legislator can do that, and offset it by increasing taxes on tourism. So I'm pro-growth. I want more tourism to come to Montana. I want more people to come to Glacier National Park. And you can increase the taxes through the auto rental tax and the lodging tax. That would help offset your property tax. The planet will take care of itself.
In 1970, the Club of Rome in the 1970s, if you've ever heard of the Club of Rome, they came up with this idea of the environmental crisis being the new enemy, uniting people around an idea of, oh my gosh, we're bad for the planet. As it's already been said, people will say the science is settled, but if you read and do your own research, you will find that it's not that cut and dry. They say it's caused by us breathing out CO2, caused by burning fossil fuels, which we're finding out aren't actually fossil fuels. But nonetheless, that means that we're the problem on the earth, and I can't stand that idea. Any new legislation that's being pushed in Helena that is going to put regulations on CO2 is going to destroy Montana energy. You guys, it is vital that we hold that together. All we have to do is look at California and how that's working out for rolling blackouts if they want to go true green energy. Not to mention, if anybody knows, mining lithium is a lot more toxic for the environment than me driving my own pickup. Thank you.
Let's hear your position on the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment, and I'm going to add in too, since you brought up taxes. If you want to, respond to that, that's fine too. Just as long as we're not spending taxes on guns, I suppose.
I'll go first.
Let's go ahead.
So I'm a dentist. That's what I do as my day job. But 5 years ago, I took the time to go back to law school, and I got a law degree at Southwestern Law School, where I primarily studied constitutional law. And what I learned was what the Supreme Court calls fundamental rights. Your right to own a gun is every bit as fundamental as your right to speak. Freedom of speech, they don't differentiate. Freedom of speech, the right to vote, and the right to own a gun are fundamental. Okay, they're very, very much protected by the Supreme Court. So several years back, there was a Supreme Court case called DC versus Heller. That case was the first time the Supreme Court addressed, is individual gun ownership a fundamental right? And they said it was. Okay, so they did place some limits on it. Okay, I'm fine with limits on machine guns, but basically every other semi-automatic gun that is a rifle or a pistol, we should be able to own. We should be able to use those for self-defense, for hunting, okay? And for collecting, there's several reasons why gun ownership is fundamental. And it talks about that in that case, DC versus Heller. I don't support any new gun legislation. And again, one of the benefits of being from out of state is I've seen things happen in Nevada that could happen here. So in Nevada and California, some of these more progressive states, I see it, they pass these red flag laws, which is a total violation of the Constitution, because they say, well, if we think you're going to do something bad with the gun, we're going to take the gun, and then you have to go before a judge to get your gun rights back. That's a violation of due process, a violation of the Second Amendment, and it shouldn't happen here.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Who is the militia? You look at all the founding documents, it's any able-bodied man. That's how it is. It's not the National Guard, it's not anyone else. The right of the people to keep and bear arms was really important to our founders, and it should be important to us today, because it is to protect us from tyrannical government. That's how it is. That's not a call for violence. which is why I'm running for office, because we need to do this through peaceful means. But it is the ultimate safeguard that we have. Thank you.
I've owned guns since 1968, I think. My first hunting license. I paid $2 for a deer tag. But we're all unanimous about this. I mean, the Second Amendment and gun control, we've already got enough laws with background checks and stuff. I don't see this as an issue in the Montana legislature. Thanks.
Good. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Let's go ahead and we'll get you guys to take a rest. We'll get our Senate candidates up to go through this. I think we probably won't go county commissioner on this one, but we'll get our Senate candidate. Kelley, I think it's your turn to go first on this. So, position on the Second Amendment.
Where does the moderate stand on this? Have you met the big guy? This is my husband, Jason. I don't get to change the Second Amendment if I want to stay at home. I've never fired a gun in my life, and I don't want to. And it's always going to be my choice and my desire and my heart to try to talk some sense into folks. But if that fails, I got the big guy. And we have a beautiful military, and they're there for a reason. Peace is my choice. But if we can't go there, I will protect our land.
Democrat running in Montana, I got asked this plenty of times at the doors last time around. It's a really easy answer. I'm unique. I have a bullet hole through my lung from a teenager who was playing around with a gun who shouldn't have been playing around with one. Total accident, my fault. I take responsibility. I also own guns. I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt, there will be no gun legislation passed in the next session. It's not going to come up. I'm not going to vote for it. Nobody in Montana is campaigning on taking away your guns. Your guns are safe.
I got my first .22 when I was 12 years old, and I learned how to use it. My dad taught me, but then I also took hunter safety, and I think that's the important thing is the training on a gun. But I will tell you, I'm endorsed by the Shooting Sports of Montana, and that's because of my voting record at the legislature. I voted in support of guns, and I got endorsed by the Shooting Sports, and that's something to help perpetuate gun ownership and handling guns for the youth of today too. And I think that's an important direction that we have to go as far as legislation is to bring the kids in. Thank you.
So it's an absolute fundamental right. It's written perfectly. We need to leave it alone. We shouldn't even be talking about it. And our girls, all three of our girls, what they got for Christmas this year was their hunting rifles. So we're all in. Thank you.
What new industries are you drawing in, and specifically, how would you promote logging and also beef or beef cattle operations? So let's go ahead. I think, Denley, we'll start with you. Mix it up.
Through the years, it's been quite a battle to try and keep the timber industry going, and we see that we've got the mills that have closed down, but I've still been in that battle, and I know we have what's called a Good Neighbor Authority that came in through Trump, and that got the state, helped put some state employees setting up timber sales to help the Forest Service set up those timber sales. I think right now we're seeing with the mills closing, and I have timber ground, so it costs me money when the mill closes. But we have the wildland urban interface that we have to protect. And I think we're seeing even the environmental groups are saying, oh, we shut down the mills. What are we going to do? Now we've got fire danger, and we're going to see, you talk about climate change, but the smoke going up in the air. Well, we're putting a lot of smoke up in the fires. And one of the other industry, we have to bring the mining back. The regulations went so hard that some of the mines had to have cleaner water coming out than the groundwater that was naturally coming. And I think that's, we keep pushing for regulation reductions, and still we have enough science that we can put safeguards in, but we have to keep pushing to get the mining going and getting the wood products industry. We have options we can try and bring back The mill in Seeley Lake, they do have some potential buyers. They're trying to work on that. But I think, we can't just go on tourism. We're the treasure state. And so we have to get our industries back in place, get some production, get some natural resource production. And that's where we see prosperity. We remember Diamond Mill here in town, the whole community prospered. And that's just not the only thing, but we have to try to bring in industry to the county and to the state. There might be some incentives to try and help. I'm not saying set it up with a government run.
My first job was changing irrigation pipe and bucking hay bales, like a lot of you, I'm guessing. We need to save our ag land. In Lolo, while I was on that board, we approved 750 some odd new homes, and a lot of it was on ag land, and we had to actually go to the commissioners and say, how are we going to protect some of this ag land? And we put in a few minor safety barriers. I think Superior is unique in all of these communities up and down because so many of us are essentially tourist communities, but you have industry here. You have your own hospital, you have logging. Like I said, I grew up in the Bitterroot. I watched Dunbar sawmill close. I've seen these things happen, especially more recently in Seeley. If the workers can't afford to stay here, the mill can't stay open. We need housing. That's how we're going to solve that problem. What we're also looking at was low snowpack this year and another crazy fire season. I was chairman of the Lolo Community Council through 2 major fires that threatened that community. We need to do something to address that urban interface, like he said. And the answer to that is a program that Gianforte actually started, which is wildland management, which is in the areas that we're around. We can't log ourselves out of wildland fire. There's too much trees out of here. But what we can do is protect our communities, and that gets us this lumber that we need here. And what we need to do to protect your hospital is make sure that Medicare expansion continues next time, and it gets its extension next time around. That's not a guarantee. And I think it's really important. The only way Superior Hospital is going to stay open is if Medicaid expansion stays. Thank you.
Question was written for me, right? So I think that what has happened is a complete and total failure of those folks that we're sending to Helena. So that's what needs to change first and foremost. So Dr. Steve says something that I have taken on as something I say now, is that because I am a business owner, I must kill to eat. And I must kill enough to keep those that are employed by me working. So I think I have tons of ideas. I've got plans, I've got methods. But again, I'm only being listened to as a very concerned, persistent consumer. I need to be in Helena so that there is a complete and total understanding of where a business owner is looking at our forest as a crop, and that's what it is. There is money, there is revenue, there is work, there's lots of things, and I see some reactions, so I want to talk to you gals afterwards. But we need to change the way that we look at the forest. We need to look at it as a revenue source. My motto is let's get to work. I want to see everybody working. You know, work is good for the soul. We have it here. If we can't access it, which is another issue, another problem, then we can't go to work. And because we're at both ends, we're logging and then we're putting out fires, or at least we're being paid by the different incidences that we're on. We would much rather be logging. And so I just wanted to add, earlier somebody asked me, how many days did we get on fires last year? My answer is always not enough. We're not logging enough to offset our time during the summer. So anyway, that's my take on it. Thank you.
Absolutely believe in small business. And Montana, last I checked, was 95% small business owners. And I'm deeply concerned with the fact that we continue to bring in big corporations. I mean, they're fine, they serve their purpose, but I will do what I can to support small businesses. And I will tell you, had it not been for the policies that Trump passed during COVID, I would not be in business. I was capable of getting PPP1, PPP2, EIDL, and we paid it all back. Nobody bailed us out. And nobody bails out the small businesses. But they do need a fair and equal playing field. And I will tell you, when my building sold, because the company that bought our building that we were in for 19 years was funded by TIF, which is fine, but it's a non-voted on agency that decided where the TIF money went. They evicted 5 small businesses. And it was sad. And we ended up finding a building, but it wasn't because Missoula was helping me. I'm gonna tell you that right now. And there was I'm fine, I'm a big girl, I handled it. We made it through. And we have a beautiful building. We've outgrown it. But the thing is, when I said, is there anybody that can help? Are you really gonna let one of Missoula's small businesses that's been here for 19 years just disappear? And yeah. So thank God something popped up. But I will tell you, there was a woman from the redevelopment agency that looked me in the eyes and said, you won't find anything in Missoula County, which is all I needed to hear, because I found it. So I am going to definitely be one of the areas that I will be paying attention to as small business heavily, because we just need to be paying attention. That's all.
Thank you. Thanks for saying, Kenneth. Good answers there. Good questions. We're getting to that point. We're going to make one final round for questions. We have a number we'll try to get through here. But if you have one that we just haven't gotten to, grab a card, wave, and Lane will come around. She's doing a great job of sending in the cards. So just final call for your questions here as we quickly go through. This one's for our county commissioner candidates. So Shawn and Don, if you want to make your way up here. The question says, homeschooling is a hot topic. Justify the loss, and I'm not sure the numbers. I think it's $12,000 per student. I'm not sure on that number. You might want to clarify that. Per student who is being homeschooled and supporting rural schools. And I'm going to add something in there from a county perspective on this. Specifically, the SRS, the Secure Rural Schools Program, and the PILT funds, payment in lieu of taxes. And I don't know, for the last 30 years, I've run into this constantly. Counties being squeezed by jeopardizing those SRS funds and the PILT funds. So specifically, speak to homeschooling, speak to that funding issue, and kind of let us know what you see from the county perspective of the importance of those federal dollars and those programs.
So just curious, they're saying that they're losing money because of homeschool?
Losing money because of homeschool. So
okay,
that's more about that.
Yeah. So let me just tell you, I have 8 kids, okay? And the first thing that I'm going to put out there is parental choice. It's vital. So I have one, they graduated from Superior High School 2 years ago. She's in the back somewhere. I have another one graduating this year. I pulled one out, and we're homeschooling 5. And those are very personal decisions for me. They're very hard. And I don't know where we lose $12,000 because I don't get any money. I don't get any help. My decision is very much on my own. We don't get anything from the state, from the feds, from anybody. So every bit of curriculum that I buy for my kids is out of my pocket. And that's hard. So like, I love that the schools get the money. I'm in support. Listen, I work with the schools. I'm involved in the schools. You can ask Mr. Lab. You can ask these guys. I'm in here helping them. I've made recommendations and for security and with work and stuff like that. And we're sitting on plans on how to get like evacuation and doing a lot of that stuff. But down to the basic is this: I have to make, and I will support people making their personal decisions with their kids. I have to be able to do that. That's my right. And so I think for anybody to, draw me into that, I think that's not right. I know there's other homeschool parents in here, and we have to make those choices for our kids. No government can make that choice for my children. Thank you.
I'm going to add anything about anything specific on that?
Yeah, so I'm not as familiar with the SRS. I mean, I know that the money goes out, but the workings of that is not as much. I think that with some of the PILT money, I think that we need to see how we can get more of the PILT money. I think that it's under rated right now, and we're not getting as much money as we should be at this time.
I'll address the PILT and the SRS money first. So the PILT money that we get payment in lieu of taxes, we're getting a little over $300,000. And I believe for the PILT money, 2/3 goes to the schools, 1/3. Yeah, well, the SRS is 1/3, and so I think that the PILT is 2/3. But in any case, as I said earlier, we are on a mission now to advocate that that PILT money is redesigned to fit into Mineral County. So we aren't getting enough money. Missoula County is getting more than we are, so we're working on that. And the SRS money, you know, we know that only 1/3 of that, no, I'm sorry, yeah, 1/3 is going to the schools. Might have my numbers mixed up there, but in any case, as far as, so that's the money, and that's what we're working on, getting more. And homeschooling, I believe, is a parental choice also. I do think that, yes, each student is worth so much money, and I think it's about $12,000 when they're in the public school system, but I have to agree it's a parental decision. I advocate for all parents to go to the school, check the curriculum. If you have an issue or you're worried about what that curriculum is, it is your job as a parent to go to the school and ask to see that curriculum.
But we also, I would like to just touch on something, because you mentioned we're coming up on, it was either last summer or this summer, the 10th anniversary of the big fire here in town. What do you see as the importance of the role of the county in terms of working on, you know, emergency planning and those kinds of things? And how would you prioritize that amongst all the other things you have to do as a county commissioner? Don, would you do that one first, please?
Sure. The greatest DES coordinator of all time, Amy Park. And she just really has it together. She's a grant writer. She takes care of emergencies, and she's got that prioritized. And we have the LEPC committee that meets, local emergency committee services. And we know that fire is always going to be number one, but so is 911 number one. And it's up to us having faith in that DES coordinator to know that she can prioritize and get the services out there when they're needed and as they're needed.
So I think it's a vital role of the county commissioners to be involved in those planning processes. Amy Parks is amazing, and she needs as much backup as she can get. Currently, I'm involved in doing a full-scale exercise for the county through my other line of work, and so I think that's vital. We need to be doing that. And so we're making plans. I'm involved in that process, but it really is going to take, while she can do part of that, she needs to be helped and supported. And I have a lot of experiences doing very high stress, very complicated scenes and all of that stuff. And so I think I could be a vital help for her. And so my thing is this: I'm a teamwork guy. I want to come in and help her where I can. Like, so we need to help her. We also, in those, like the fires and stuff, we need to be with the sheriff's department, make sure they have the people, the resources, and back him up. Because what happens in these fires is, and I've been involved in them, the Lolo fire, the Sunrise fire, we've been involved in all of that. And so we need to gather resources and help her make those calls and come in and back her up. So I think it's really vital for the commissioners to be involved in that, not be a pain in the butt. I'm not a micromanager. That's not my game. But to be able to help in those situations, we're a very small community. We have to be able to work together and help those people. She has many hats and many roles, and it's always my concern to be able to take care of her and keep her working here because she's a valuable asset to this county. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, John. I really want to thank our candidates. We'll give you a big round of applause shortly, but thank you for being concise with your answers and noticing the timekeeper. We appreciate that. Let's go to our Senate candidates next. So if you kind of want to come forward, we're going to talk about Medicaid expansion. This was alluded to the question in the past year. Some 100,000 people have been disenrolled from Medicaid because of the paperwork requirements and getting people to qualify. What about Medicaid expansion? Where does this go, especially from a role as the Senate? Denley, come on up. We're going to start with you on that.
Medicaid expansion, those people that were dropped off, the idea was they were supposed to set up and re-enroll, and sometimes there was a glitch in the re-enrollment product, and they just got dropped, and they're trying to correct that problem. But Medicaid expansion is so important, especially to our community here, the Plains community. If we did not have the Medicaid expansion, the cost to Montanans would be about $82 million because of the people who would be walking into the hospital, going into the emergency room. So people are saying, well, you're spending Montana dollars to get to Medicaid, but actually Montana brings in about $27 million because of it, and we have a healthy workforce. 60% of employers have people on Medicaid, and so our workforce is being supported and healthy because of the Medicaid. And if we drop that program, our employers are going to lose that insurance for their workers. And the other thing is, a healthy workforce is productive. So if we don't have that healthy workforce, we're losing productivity. We have income tax that's coming to the state from those healthy workers. So the Medicaid expansion, there is no question. It needs to be reauthorized. There's no question. It's called the HELP Act, and it really is a helper. And I know some people say, well, it's a government giveaway program, but no, it would cost Montanans, and I'm going to work hard, and I have in the past, to keep it going.
I think it's pretty safe to say that Medicare expansion is what's keeping a lot of our medical services here in Montana. In our little communities, all the clinics, all the hospitals, they require on this. I think the only Yellowstone quote I've ever heard that I liked was when somebody said, Montana is just poverty with a view. We all know that wages here are low. We're in the bottom 15% in wages. We're in the top 10, or the bottom 15 in wages. We're in the top 10 in housing costs. Trying to make these things trying to make this work doesn't work for everybody. I didn't qualify for a PPP loan because I'm my only employee. I'm the only person who works for me, right? And so that meant in 2020, I qualified for Medicare. I needed it to have actual care, and it did. It helped me out. That's what living in Montana is. We are going to have points where Medicaid, yes, thank you. We're going to have points where a hot water heater goes out, and we're going to have to come up with the way to pay for it. And I think that we deserve representation that remembers that kind of pain. And so that's one of the reasons I'm running. I think almost everybody here, if you care about Superior, you're going to support continued Medicaid expansion.
Large insurance companies scare me, and I think at some point we need to address that. I have very dear friends and family who need this to continue. I was literally talking to an employee today who got kicked off. He's 21, he got kicked off of it because of whatever they just did. And he literally said to me on the phone today, I went online, I couldn't get through, I couldn't get a hold of anybody in Helena. It was brutal. And he depends on that. So I'm with Denley on this. I thank you. But also I'm frustrated at large insurance corporations making a lot of money on the backs of those of us that aren't even using our insurance because we are healthy, but we pay it. And I'm grateful that my husband works for the county. He's a road guy. And the county has good insurance because my small business cannot afford it.
So in regards to the Medicaid expansion, I certainly expect that it will go forward and that it will continue. However, I do have some major concerns. The oversight is lacking. There is some expenses that definitely need to be curtailed. I think that the providers need to, in fact, be reimbursed at a much higher rate. So I think that it needs to be looked at, and again, should it go forward, I will fully support it, but I think it's one of those things that it has run away, and that's why we're at where we're at now with it. So I think that we have to be careful with something as big as this particular program. Thank you.
And then we're going to have our House candidates chime in on this one as well. This is kind of a statement that starts out, Montana, one of 4 states nationwide without public pre-K, which off the top of my head, I think that's accurate. House Bill 352 was a step forward for the state, but felt like a step backward for Mineral County. Would you support expanding and funding pre-K in Montana, A, and B, just generally, how can the legislature address this issue of child care and the expense that's been going up there? AnnaMarie, we're going to start with you on that.
I do have education in early childhood and administration of early childhood programs, and worked for a very long time for a very large, not just, it was a private preschool with a specialized pre-K program, private kindergarten, and then a daycare. So I think that there must have been some misunderstanding as to why this program was interrupted to begin with. I think we absolutely need to support it. There are monies there. Again, I think that if any one of us looks at the state's budget, you will see waste. You will see where monies are being allocated, where they are in fact useless. There's no product from those monies. I think that this needs to be looked at again. I would want to see it not just, and then we're always being given just a few years at a time, and then it comes up again. I think that this needs to be permanent, that we need to have this in place. I think it needs to be part of our school structure. There needs to be an expectation, and I do truly believe that the money is there. Bottom line, it's always about money. So let's look at the budget and figure out where we can take money from those non-producing entities that we've got, I'll hurry up because I just got the yellow card. And in regards to child care programs, certainly I support that. I want to see everybody go to work. I would love to be an employer that pays so much that my employees would not need any other service than to work for me. But in regards to child care, oftentimes it is subsidized because of the expense of child care. So there's lots that we can do with the providers and then help with the expense of child care. Thank you.
Education for youth, no matter how young they are, is so important. And so we need to support the education on the lower side, on the younger children. And when it comes to this caring for the children when they're in daycare and such, I know there was some legislation that changed some of the zoning around some areas of town so they could actually provide some child care in places where the cities had stopped it. And I think it is important. There are some employers that have enough money or enough forethought that they're putting out a program for their employees. But we just have to find dollars to help support the care of those children so that we can actually put money, have their parents working, but also get those kids in school as soon as we can. So we have to find the dollars to support. It's important for the youth to take care of, get them into schools and also get their parents to work too. So it goes together hand in hand. Dollars are hard to find, but there are some there.
Will you read the question one more time?
Basically, House Bill 352, step forward for the state, but felt like a step back for Mineral County. What would you support expanding funding pre-K?
Okay, perfect. Whoever wrote that, can you tell me what House Bill 352 does? I'll give up a minute if somebody can help me. Thank you. Will you help me? Tell me? Thank you. I'm sorry.
352 is an early literacy bill, so Mineral County previously used exceptional circumstances and every kid was eligible to come to pre-K in Mineral County, and now they have to screen them as needing help to be able to come.
Okay.
So it was a step forward for the state. Some places have no pre-K, but it was a step back for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate that very much. I think one of the challenges is small communities, I often think get, like I think Devin said earlier, they get lost in the mix, and whoever represents you in this district, whoever represents us, has to go in there with the intention of that. So if the bill isn't complete and needs to be amended, or a new bill has to come in order to make sure that the needs, as everybody already said, of the early childhood development is happening, we need to take a look at how that didn't serve and represent smaller communities. And there are a few things. I was at the property tax meeting yesterday, and Helen, I just drove up for fun, and I sat in the room, and I honestly heard some of the proposals, and then I actually heard somebody say, yeah, but if we go that way, it was a caller, it was somebody who was on Zoom, and they said, but if we go that way, that's going to affect some of the smaller communities. And I was like, ooh, Kelley, pay attention. So thank you for that, and I just have to make sure I write it down so I can do my homework.
Sometimes we all like to get wonky with the numbers and cite the bills, and it gets confusing. The basic gist of it is early childhood education is a great start, and every child deserves some sort of access to it, right? My wife works at the YMCA, which is one of the largest child care providers in Missoula County, and she developed a program for them for early childhood literacy and a reading program. These are very important things, but when I talked to my friend about child care, he said, you know, my Joker moment, the moment I became the supervillain ready to burn it all down, was when I got my first quote for childcare last year. The numbers are through the roof. And, 2 years ago, it was on my thing, this is something we need to solve. There was a massive surplus, and yet there's less childcare available than there was before in Lolo. How do we deal with this? Well, it's going to require funding. The only way that we can take the burden off of the parents is if we find a way to make this education. And education needs to be available for all. It is in our Constitution. And so that's going to have to be the step. We're going to have to use the next surplus to actually fund some more child care.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Let's get our House candidates, Steve and Curt and Jeff, come on up and we'll get you here. And I'll have one more for your county commissioner candidates as we wrap up here. Really good, meaty stuff. You're doing a great job. Thank you. All right, let's start. Jeff, let's have you go first. I think it's me.
Sure. All right, so in a perfect world, I don't think the state should be raising our kids, but obviously we don't have that. If the taxpayer thinks that it is a priority that we have pre-K, then we should do it. But the problem is everything is upside down and backwards with our priorities. Okay, it's already been said, $2.5 billion surplus. The money is there, but I promise the way government operates, this thing just continues to grow and get bigger. I am concerned with how you would fund it. If you could present to me an idea of how you would fund it, something like, hey, how about the ridiculous stuff we're spending the marijuana tax money on? You could definitely open up child care for that, or pre-K care, right? Exactly. It's an absurd thing, what is happening. So I would be open to those ideas, but it has to come from us, we the people, the taxpayers. The moment government gets involved in this kind of thing, you know what happens. Fraud, waste, and abuse, and this thing gets fatter and fatter. That's where I stand on it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not really familiar with this issue on the pre-K, but I have done a lot of research on the K-12 funding in Montana. And it's one of the legislature has two things required by law to do. One is pass the budget. Two is provide an equal quality education free for every kid. That's the two things required by law, period. The rest of everything else is rolling with the punches and so the School Equalization Act, that's the 95 mills that the county, bless their hearts, tried to trim down to keep our property taxes a little lower this year. But by law, that School Equalization Act, it gave the money to poor counties and schools like we have. I attended a Zoom meeting a couple months ago, and it had a good example. Before 1985, before that act became law, they had Madison County, Ennis, Montana, and Superior, Montana were the two examples. Identical size schools, identical size faculty. The tax base from Superior School District at that time was $5 million. That's when we still had the Diamond Mill. The tax base in Madison County, Ennis, was $109 million. So you think they had a better school than we did? You bet they did. They had higher paid teachers, they had more programs, they had art, they had... So anyway, if to address that issue, maybe they could include pre-K. I mean, it would be a committee with school board people and teachers to testify the needs for that. But that's one of my big deals. Is the schools in our little communities are the heart and soul of our communities. The high school athletics, you'll see me at basketball games in Superior and Frenchtown, Albert. I go to all of them. My kids are long gone, but now the kids that I coached, they're coaching. And that's number one for me, is to provide an education for our kids. Thanks.
Thank you. So I'm very pro-education as well. I went through public schools my whole life, and I did great. I think the question really, over listening to the last three questions, is how much government do you want in your life? That's really the question. And I'm going to try to address all three of these. The question about Medicaid expansion, the question about public schools and pre-K really gets back to how much government do you want in your life and how much do you want to be taxed. To do these things, your property taxes will go up. So to solve problems in Helena, it helps to have subject matter expertise. I take Medicaid. 90% of my patients are on Medicaid. I have 3 offices, Lola, Frenchtown, and Superior, and we're happy to treat everybody regardless of their ability to pay. We pick up people who cars break down and help them with dentistry. The way to fix that is, if you're going to accept Medicaid expansion, you trim the fat and you have people who are smart and see the fraud, waste, and abuse, and I see it. I see people who use Medicaid as a subsidy. They come in with brand new $50,000 trucks and they're paying out of pocket for brand new orthodontics, and then they take the Medicaid, the dental Medicaid, as a subsidy. That shouldn't happen. Okay, I grew up with a disabled aunt who is nonverbal, non-ambulatory. People like her need Medicaid. That's who the system was designed for. Not people like me, not able-bodied 25-year-olds who go out and work. That's not what Medicaid is for. School choice, or not school choice. There was a comment and it almost sounded like the schools own your kids. Hey, that's our $12,000. How dare you keep your kid at home? No, children belong to the parents. Under the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, parental rights are fundamental rights. No state shall deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Under the Liberty Clause, you have parental rights. Don't tell me my kid belongs to you and my kid is $12,000. It's not a privilege, Don, it's a right. Thank you.
With that additional comment about Medicaid and also schools and funding and those things, Jeff, did you have any comments you want to add on that?
So the issue with Medicaid, I just had a conversation with a gal in Plains last Saturday about Medicaid. She says she works with elderly, vulnerable populations out in Sanders County. She says they're getting dropped. There's nothing we can do. They really, really need it, and they're going to be in a pretty bad position financially because they can't pay for their basic medical bills. And I said, okay, let me dig into it a little bit more. I found out that it's something like 4-to-1 is federal money flowing into Montana for Medicaid right now. You can do your own research on it, but that kind of caught me off guard, which is higher than anything that we have as far as our border states go, whether it be Idaho or Wyoming. Nonetheless, as I said before with the pre-K issue, our priorities are upside down. They're upside down in the state and they're upside down at the federal level. We should be sending $120 billion to Ukraine when we have huge amounts of homeless populations, fentanyl crisis. We got people that can't afford health care. You shouldn't be doing that. So I am all in favor of supporting that if that's what the taxpayer wants. The problem is I feel disconnected from those that represent me, and I believe that you do too. So it's important that we get our priorities straight. As far as education funding, and I'm guessing that's where you're just general education funding, I teach. I'm going to tell you guys from experience, throwing more money at the problems we're having in education is not going to solve it. I promise you it's not. And I can point out, if you want to talk with me after, I can point out fraud, waste, and abuse that I've seen in our local districts that needs to stop. But see, this thing is a bigger problem. Those effects trickle down, whether it be from the federal government to the state or from the state to local communities. And I agree. Look, You guys, you're taxpayers. If you have kids and you want to send them to public schools, you should do it. But that money should follow the child, whether it be in public school, charter schools, or homeschools. Thank you.
So Medicaid expansion, you everybody know what that is. It's a program that started with it came with the Obamacare, Affordable Care Act. It's poorly named. It doesn't expand anything. It replaced the old Medicare. So Medicaid expansion is for people 0 to 64. That's it. And it's the federal poverty level of $19,400. So it took several years for Montana to, it's a law of the land. It's a federal program. It's 90% federally funded, 10% state. I'll take that any day, 90-10. It took several years until the Republicans finally decided to, wasn't until 2015, the HELP Act, where they actually adopted it. So they approved it for every 2 years. The legislature meets every 2 years. In 2025, the next session, it's sundowns. So it has to be reapproved by the legislature in the next session. And so it's been in effect since 15, and it has proven itself, like Denley said. It has proven itself for business, for health. If we do not approve it, you go back to zero. There's 75,000 kids that would lose health insurance. It's proven itself, it works, and I would vote to reapprove Medicaid expansion.
We're out of time, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read a couple of other questions, and afterwards, if you want to come up and talk to the candidates, or you guys may want to bone up on these questions for the next forum. For Mineral County, and I wanted to get to this one. For Mineral County, why are prices for apartments based off Missoula's when we aren't getting paid the same wage as Missoula? Why are seniors who are on fixed income paying just as high for rent as homeowners? Another question was, name one thing you'd achieve that people in this audience would notice in their daily lives. I wish we could have gone there, but that's a good one. What experience do you have in managing a budget? I think a lot of folks always want to know what your fiscal experience is. How will you support local law enforcement? That's one question I wanted to go down the road, but we didn't get there. Economic development and growth very much needed in Mineral County within the state. What will you do as a legislator, a senator, or a county commissioner to promote economic development in the local and state levels? How many years have you voted in the state? And I'll tell you, one of the things the media usually looks at is a person's voting record, what candidate's voting record. And I would encourage you could look that up as well. Describe your understanding of state and federal constitution. We kind of went there on Second Amendment, I think. And then there was a question about chemtrails, which we also didn't get to. So you guys did. Let's hear it for our candidates. Thanks, and I want to thank all of you for your great questions and those things. You know, I've been doing this coming up on 50 years reporting. I started 19 years old. And I'll tell you, some days I lose my faith in the system. I just need to come to Superior more often. Right? It's so wonderful to see people expressing their opinions, expressing their care and concern for our communities, and for you to ask great questions. Let's keep the dialogue going, okay? We have a don't you go anywhere yet. We have a very important public service announcement from Lane, who has put on the miles for all of us tonight. Go ahead.
Well, thank you everyone for your presence here tonight and for your solidarity with our local government. I personally am very thankful to have this opportunity to represent my school and represent our BPA program. And you'll see in the back, we do have bulletin boards set up that are sort of an overview of what we do at BPA and what our program stands for. And I'd also like to thank our community for the support that they give to BPA, because the success of our organization would not be possible without any of you. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the future right there. So please check out that information. I think, Liz, is there some goodies left there? Okay. Hit some for the road. Thank you very much. Don't forget to vote. Look up your information and be a part of the process. Thanks for coming tonight.